The probe drifted silently through space, its metal body scarred from months of travel through the void between stars. Inside the Galactic Council headquarters on Zentari Prime, technician Veltar watched the data stream with growing confusion. The readings made no sense. "Commander Zethek, you need to see this," Veltar called across the monitoring station. His forearms moved quickly over the control panels, checking and rechecking the impossible numbers appearing on his screen. "Commander." Zethek floated over on his gas-filled mobility unit. As a Nethran, he could not survive in the thin atmosphere that most other species preferred. "What is the problem, Veltar?" "Sir, Probe 779 has been monitoring the third planet in the Sol system for 6 months now. The readings show life signs, but they cannot be correct." Zethek studied the data with his large, compound eyes. The planet showed massive electromagnetic activity, violent weather patterns, and surface temperatures that varied wildly from region to region. Most disturbing of all, the atmosphere contained 21% oxygen, a highly reactive gas that would burn through most alien respiratory systems in minutes. "Run the diagnostics again," Zithak ordered. "The probe must be damaged." Veltar had already run diagnostics 14 times. Each result came back the same. "Sir, all systems show normal function, but look at this." He highlighted a section of the data stream. "The lifeforms are not just surviving on this death world, they are thriving." The probe had detected billions of life signs scattered across the planet's surface. Even more shocking, these beings had built massive cities, created complex technology, and appeared to be engaged in some form of space exploration. They had launched primitive chemical rockets beyond their atmosphere and established orbital stations around their toxic world. "This is impossible," Zithak muttered. His breathing apparatus hissed as he processed the information. No known species could survive in such conditions. The radiation levels alone would kill a Zentari in hours. The atmospheric pressure would crush a Vorthak. And that oxygen concentration would dissolve Hixian lung tissue instantly. But the probe continued to send more disturbing data. It had observed these creatures, humans, according to their own communications, engaging in activities that defied all understanding of biological limitations. They exercised in the open air without protection, breathing the corrosive atmosphere directly into their bodies. They consumed liquids that contained ethanol, a substance used as industrial cleaner by most galactic species. They even exposed themselves to their star's radiation for recreation, lying motionless under the burning light. 3 weeks later, the probe captured something that sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council's military division. The humans were conducting training exercises on worlds that had been classified as extinction class by galactic standards. Captain Li Wu Jin stood on the surface of Kepler 438b, a planet that orbited so close to its star that surface temperatures reached 400 degrees Celsius. The air shimmered with heat that would vaporize most known alien species instantly. Around him, 50 human soldiers practiced combat maneuvers in full gear, their faces barely showing strain from the hellish conditions. "Remember to conserve water," Li called out to his troops. "We only have 6 hours of training time before the sun reaches peak intensity." To him, this was a routine training exercise. To any alien observer, it was a demonstration of impossible endurance. The probe watched from orbit as the humans moved across the volcanic landscape with ease. They climbed mountains of molten rock, crossed rivers of sulfuric acid, and established temporary bases in areas where the ground temperature could melt steel. When their equipment failed due to the extreme heat, they repaired it with their bare hands, seemingly unaware that they were performing tasks in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens before they could even scream. Dr. Park Subin reviewed the latest biological samples her team had collected from Titan, one of Saturn's moons. The moon's surface temperature stayed at minus 179 degrees Celsius year-round. Her research team had spent 3 months there, studying how extremophile bacteria might adapt to similar conditions on worlds across the galaxy. "The microorganisms here are fascinating," she told her assistant over the communication link. "They've developed proteins that remain stable at temperatures that would freeze most galactic species solid before they could take a single breath." Park did not realize that her casual scientific expedition was being monitored by alien technology. To her, working in conditions that would instantly kill 97% of known galactic species was simply another day at the office. She wore a standard environmental suit that, by galactic standards, provided less protection than a thin sheet of fabric. Meanwhile, Ambassador Kim Da-yoon prepared for humanity's eventual contact with alien civilizations. She studied theoretical xenobiology and practiced diplomatic protocols in her office on Luna, Earth's moon. The office had large windows that looked out onto the lunar surface, where the temperature swung between 120 degrees Celsius during the day and minus 173 degrees at night. When we meet other species, we must be careful not to overwhelm them with our capabilities, Kim wrote in her diplomatic briefing. Many aliens may come from worlds with more stable, gentle environments. We should present ourselves as peaceful explorers, not as potential threats. She had no idea that alien probes were already monitoring human activities with growing alarm. Every routine human operation appeared to violate the basic laws of biology as understood by the Galactic Council. Back on Centauri Prime, the reports continued to flood in. Probe after probe confirmed the impossible truth. Humans routinely lived and worked in environments that would be classified as weapons of mass destruction by galactic standards. Their homeworld alone was more hostile than the most extreme military testing facilities used by the toughest species in the galaxy. Sir, Veltar reported to Commander Zethak, we have confirmed that these humans use their star's radiation for medical treatment. They deliberately expose sick individuals to electromagnetic radiation levels that would cause immediate organ failure in any known species. Zethak's breathing apparatus worked overtime as his stress levels increased. What about their military capabilities? Unknown, sir. But if their routine civilian activities take place in conditions that exceed our most extreme warfare scenarios, their actual military capabilities must be beyond our ability to measure. The probe data showed humans engaging in recreational activities that doubled as military training. They climbed frozen mountains where the air was too thin for most species to breathe. They swam in bodies of water that contained salt concentrations, high enough to preserve organic matter for centuries. They ran for hours under gravitational pull that would crush the bones of smaller species. Most disturbing of all, human children played games in environments that required full hazmat protection for adult aliens to survive. The probes recorded young humans building structures in sand heated by solar radiation to temperatures that would cook Centauri flesh in seconds. They watched human children swim in liquid water, a substance so reactive that most galactic species stored it only in specially designed containment units. Commander, Veltar said quietly, I believe we must inform the High Council immediately. These humans represent either the greatest opportunity for alliance in galactic history or the most dangerous threat we have ever encountered. Zethak stared at the endless stream of data from the human homeworld. Every reading confirmed the same impossible truth. Humanity had evolved on a world so hostile that it made their species capable of surviving anywhere in the galaxy. There, routine training exercises took place in conditions that would be classified as torture devices by galactic law. Send an emergency communication to the High Council, Zethak ordered. Classification level, Galactic Threat Assessment. Subject, species designation human, immediate evaluation required. As the message traveled through quantum communication networks toward the heart of galactic government, the probes continued their silent observation. They watched Captain Li Wu-jin lead his soldiers through another day of training on a world that would kill most aliens before they could transmit a distress signal. They recorded Dr. Park Soo-bin collecting samples. In conditions that violated every known law of biological survival, they observed Ambassador Kim Da-yoon preparing for diplomatic contact while sitting in an environment more hostile than most species' maximum security prisons. The humans continued their daily lives, unaware that their mere existence had triggered the largest military and scientific crisis in galactic history. The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted for 7 standard days. Representatives from 43 species debated the human question, while their best scientists analyzed the probe data. Every conclusion reached the same terrifying result. Humanity represented an unknown variable that could destabilize the entire galactic order. High Counselor Kethron of the Vorthak Collective raised his crystalline head above the speaking platform. Fellow counselors, we face a decision that will affect the next 1,000 years of galactic civilization. Do we make contact with these humans? Or do we maintain quarantine protocols until we better understand their capabilities? The debate had raged for days without resolution. Some species argued for immediate diplomatic contact, hoping to establish peaceful relations before humanity developed faster-than-light travel. Others demanded a complete blockade of the Sol system until the human threat could be properly assessed. The humans show no signs of aggressive expansion, argued Representative Faith Ara of the Healing Caste. Their probe launches are primitive and exploratory in nature. They appear to be a curious but peaceful species. Commander Oth Malik of the War Caste disagreed strongly. Any species capable of training in conditions that would annihilate our finest warriors cannot be considered harmless. Their very existence suggests military capabilities beyond our comprehension. While the politicians debated, the science division worked frantically to understand human physiology. Dr. Zenthari, the galaxy's leading expert in extremophile biology, presented her findings to a closed session of the Council's Scientific Advisory Board. Based on the biological samples collected by our stealth probes, humans appear to have evolved under conditions that exceed the survival parameters of 98% of known galactic species, she reported. Their muscle density, bone, structure, and organ efficiency suggest adaptation to an environment that we would classify as a high-security containment facility. The room fell silent as she continued her analysis. Most remarkably, they appear to require the hostile conditions of their homeworld for optimal health. Prolonged exposure to what we would consider normal, safe environments might actually be harmful to their biology. After days of debate, the Council reached a decision. They would attempt first contact, but with extreme precautions. The finest diplomatic vessel in the galactic fleet would be modified with the most advanced life support systems available. The contact team would consist of representatives from the three most hardy species in the galaxy, equipped with emergency evacuation protocols. The diplomatic ship Harmony's Light departed from Centauri Prime 3 weeks later. Captain Vex Thul, a member of the radiation-resistant Plutonian species, commanded the vessel. His crew included the galaxy's most experienced xenobiologists, linguists, and cultural specialists. They had trained for 6 months in the most extreme conditions they could safely endure, which still fell far short of routine human environment standards. As the ship approached Earth's solar system, the crew's anxiety levels increased dramatically. Their sensors confirmed everything the probes had reported. The third planet showed massive electromagnetic activity, violent weather patterns, and atmospheric conditions that would require full environmental protection for the entire crew. Beginning atmospheric analysis of the human homeworld, reported Science Officer Thython, confirming oxygen concentration at 21%, nitrogen at 78%, and trace amounts of argon and carbon dioxide. Temperature variations range from -89 degrees Celsius to +58 degrees at the surface. Captain Vex Thul checked his environmental suit's power levels for the 10th time in an hour. All crew members will maintain full life support at all times. Any breach of environmental protocol could result in immediate biological failure. The ship established orbit around Earth's moon, maintaining a safe distance from the planet's intense radiation fields. From their position, they could observe human space stations and satellite networks. The humans had built their orbital installations without the heavy radiation shielding that galactic species considered essential for space survival. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo received the alert at Earth Defense Command headquarters in Seoul. The orbital monitoring stations had detected an unknown vessel approaching Earth's moon. The ship's design matched no known human technology, and its energy signature suggested artificial gravity and faster-than-light capability. "Sir, the vessel appears to be broadcasting a mathematical sequence," reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Park. "The pattern suggests an attempt at peaceful contact." Choi studied the tactical display with growing excitement and concern. Humanity had theorized about alien contact for decades, but the reality felt surreal. "Send our standard first contact protocol, mathematics, physics constants, and basic chemical symbols. Let them know we're intelligent and peaceful." Aboard the Harmony's Light, the crew celebrated as they received humanity's response. The mathematical sequences confirmed that the species possessed scientific knowledge and logical thinking. More importantly, the response pattern suggested a peaceful intent. Initiating voice communication protocols, announced communications specialist Rethani. She had spent months learning to produce sounds that might be comprehensible to human hearing organs. Broadcasting on multiple frequencies and communication methods. The first exchange of spoken words between humans and aliens took place through radio transmission between Earth and the diplomatic vessel. Dr. Yoon Ji-hee, Earth's lead atmospheric scientist and humanity's appointed first contact specialist, handled the initial conversation. "Greetings, unknown visitors," Dr. Yoon transmitted from the communications center in Seoul. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We welcome you in peace and friendship." Captain Vexathul's response came through with obvious mechanical translation assistance. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We come seeking peaceful diplomatic relations with your species." The initial communications continued for several hours, with both sides sharing basic information about their civilizations. The aliens explained that they represented a coalition of intelligent species spanning thousands of worlds. The humans shared information about Earth's nations, cultures, and scientific achievements. "We would like to invite your representatives to visit our vessel for formal diplomatic meetings," Captain Vexthul transmitted. "However, we must warn you that our life support systems may not be compatible with your biological requirements." Dr. Yoon found this statement puzzling. "We appreciate your concern, but human life support needs are quite flexible. We can survive in a wide range of environmental conditions. What specific compatibility issues concern you?" The alien crew exchanged worried glances. The humans seemed completely unaware of how extreme their environmental requirements were by galactic standards. "Our ship maintains an atmosphere of 12% oxygen, standard galactic pressure, and temperature regulation between 15 and 25 degrees Celsius," the captain explained carefully. "We are concerned these conditions might be too extreme for human physiology." Dr. Yoon almost laughed at the alien's caution. The described conditions sounded like a comfortable indoor environment by human standards. "Those conditions sound perfectly acceptable for human visitors. We would be honored to meet with your diplomatic team." Engineer Kang Min-ho prepared the shuttle that would carry Earth's first diplomatic mission to an alien vessel. The three-person human team included Dr. Yoon, Admiral Choi, and Ambassador Kim Da-yoon. They wore standard spacesuits designed for orbital operations, carrying basic life support equipment that they expected to use only during the shuttle flight. As the human shuttle approached the alien vessel, the Harmony's light crew prepared for the most dangerous diplomatic meeting in galactic history. They had sealed the docking bay with triple emergency barriers and flooded it with medical support equipment. Emergency medical teams stood ready to treat any humans who might suffer immediate biological failure upon exposure to the ship's environment. "Human shuttle is requesting permission to dock," reported the navigation officer. "They appear to be using chemical propulsion and primitive guidance systems." Captain Vexthul activated the ship's most advanced life support protocols. "Grant docking permission. All crew maintain maximum alert status. Medical teams prepare for immediate biological emergency response." The human shuttle docked without incident, though the alien crew noted with alarm that the human ship's hull showed no signs of heavy radiation shielding or extreme temperature protection. The shuttle appeared to be built for operation in space, environments that would require the most advanced protection suits in the galactic fleet. Dr. Yoon, Admiral Choi, and Ambassador Kim stepped through the airlock into the alien ship. They immediately removed their helmets, breathing the ship's atmosphere without any apparent discomfort. The alien crew watched in shock as the humans moved freely through an environment that most galactic species would find barely survivable. "The temperature and air quality are very comfortable," Dr. Yoon commented cheerfully. "Thank you for providing such a pleasant environment for our meeting." The aliens stared in disbelief. 3 months after first contact, the cultural exchange program between Earth and the Galactic Council had produced remarkable results. Human and alien scientists worked together to bridge the gap between their vastly different technologies and biological capabilities. However, the aliens still struggled to understand how humans had survived and thrived on their death world planet. Ambassador Kim Da-eun stood in the observation deck of the orbital station that had been constructed specifically for human-alien cooperation. Through the transparent walls, she could see Earth rotating slowly below, its blue and white surface appearing deceptively peaceful to alien eyes. "We would like to invite your military observers to witness some of our training exercises," Kim told Captain Vexthul during their weekly diplomatic meeting. "We believe it would help your people understand human capabilities and eliminate any fears about our peaceful intentions." Captain Vexthul's environmental suit hummed as its life support systems adjusted to his stress response. The probe data had already shown him more than enough of human military training, but diplomatic protocol required him to accept the invitation. "We would be honored to observe your military procedures. When and where would these demonstrations take place?" "Colonel Seo Tae-min is conducting advanced survival training exercises on Proxima Centauri b next week," Kim replied casually. "The planet provides excellent conditions for testing our soldiers' adaptability to different environmental challenges." The alien captain's suit alarms began beeping softly. Proxima Centauri b was classified as an extinction-class world by Galactic standards. The planet orbited so close to its red dwarf star that one side remained permanently frozen while the other burned under constant stellar radiation. Winds of 800 kilometers per hour carried razor-sharp dust storms across the surface. The atmospheric pressure alone would crush most galactic species. "You train your military personnel on Proxima Centauri b?" Vexthul asked, hoping he had misunderstood the translation software. "Of course," Kim answered with a smile. "It's one of our more challenging training environments, but nothing too extreme. The gravity is only slightly higher than Earth normal, and the atmospheric conditions provide good practice for operating in hostile territories." 2 weeks later, a small fleet of heavily protected galactic observation vessels approached Proxima Centauri b. The ships maintained what their crews considered a minimum safe distance from the Death World's surface. Inside the vessels, the galaxy's most experienced military observers prepared to witness what they expected would be a brief demonstration of human endurance before environmental conditions forced an evacuation. Colonel Seo Tae-min stood on the day side of Proxima Centauri b, where surface temperatures reached 420 degrees Celsius. Around him, 30 human soldiers prepared for a training exercise that would last 6 standard days. They wore environmental suits that, by galactic standards, provided less protection than a thin cloth covering. "Today we're practicing extended operations in Class 7 hostile environments," Seo announced to his troops. "Remember that real combat situations might require you to operate in conditions far worse than this, so treat this as basic preparation. Training." Lieutenant Bayek Yajin checked her equipment one final time before the exercise began. She was 22 years old and had been in the military for only 18 months. To the alien observers watching from orbit, she appeared to be a young, inexperienced soldier. To human standards, she was a competent but unremarkable member of the training unit. "Sir, all squads report ready for deployment," Beck informed the colonel. "Weather conditions are stable. Wind speeds only 200 kilometers per hour. Temperature holding steady at 400 degrees. The alien observers listened to this communication with growing horror. The humans were describing conditions that would instantly kill most galactic species as stable weather. Even more disturbing, the young female soldier spoke as if these were routine, manageable conditions. Sergeant Song Jae-ho had served in the human military for 12 years. He specialized in extreme environment survival training and had conducted exercises on over 30 different worlds. His service record was impressive by human standards, but to the aliens watching from space, he represented something beyond their comprehension. "Listen up, trainees," Song called out to the assembled soldiers. "This week we're going to practice everything from basic survival to advanced combat operations. The day side gives us good heat training, the night side provides sub-zero combat experience, and the twilight zone offers high-wind maneuvering practice." The galactic observers watched through their ship's most advanced sensors as the human soldiers began their training routine. The first exercise involved a 20-kilometer march across terrain that glowed red-hot from stellar radiation. The humans moved in formation, carrying full combat equipment, communicating normally through their helmet radios. "Squad 2, adjust. Your formation to account for the wind shear," Lieutenant Bayek transmitted calmly. "Stay hydrated. Remember, we have limited water supplies for this exercise." Aboard the observation vessel, Excellence of Thought, General Krexthul of the Galactic Military Council stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. His species, the Voridians, were considered among the most physically capable warriors in the galaxy. Their elite special forces trained in conditions that other species found challenging but survivable. "Are we certain the sensor readings are accurate?" General Krexthul asked his science officer. "The surface temperature readings suggest that the humans are operating in conditions that would vaporize Viridian battle armor." "All sensors confirm the readings, General," replied Science Officer Mexari. "The human soldiers are conducting routine military exercises in an environment that our own troops would classify as unsurvivable, even with maximum protection equipment." The training exercise continued for 6 days. The alien observers watched as the human soldiers practiced combat maneuvers, survival techniques, and equipment maintenance in conditions that violated every known law of military science. On the night side of the planet, where temperatures dropped to -200 degrees Celsius, the humans continued their exercises without apparent difficulty. "Night operations present some interesting challenges," Colonel Co explained to his troops as they set up camp on the frozen side of the planet. "The temperature differential between day and night sides creates some unique tactical opportunities. We'll practice rapid temperature adaptation and equipment switching." The human soldiers moved between the burning day side and the frozen night side of the planet as part of their training routine. They practiced transitioning from extreme heat operations to extreme cold operations within minutes, adapting their tactics and equipment to conditions that would require completely different specialized vessels for most galactic species. Lieutenant Beck led her squad through an exercise that involved climbing a mountain range on the planet's terminator line, where constant hurricane-force winds carried debris at velocities that would shred galactic military vehicles. She treated the exercise as routine training, offering encouragement and tactical advice to her fellow soldiers. "Remember to use the wind resistance for stability when you're climbing the vertical sections," she advised her squad members. "The debris impacts aren't too bad today. Visibility is good and the rocks are mostly small ones." Sergeant Song demonstrated advanced survival techniques to the training group. He showed them how to construct temporary shelters using materials found on the planet's surface, how to purify water from the planet's frozen underground reserves, and how to repair equipment damaged by the extreme environmental conditions. "In real combat situations, you might need to operate on worlds even more challenging than this one," Song explained while replacing a damaged component in his suit's life support system. "This training gives you the basic skills you'll need to adapt to unknown planetary conditions." The galactic military observers realized that they were witnessing the impossible. The humans weren't just surviving in conditions that would annihilate the galaxy's finest warriors. They were using those conditions as basic training for even more extreme scenarios. "General," Science Officer Mexari reported quietly, "our analysis suggests that this represents standard training for human military personnel. Intelligence indicates that human special forces train in conditions that exceed even these parameters." General Krexthul's breathing apparatus worked overtime as he processed this information. The implications were staggering. If routine human military training exceeded the survival capabilities of galactic elite forces, what did that suggest about human combat capabilities? On the planet's surface, the training exercise concluded successfully. All 30 human soldiers completed the 6-day program without serious injury or equipment failure. Colonel Co gathered his troops for the final debriefing session. "Good work, everyone," Co announced. "This was solid basic training, but remember that real operational environments may be significantly more challenging. Next month we'll be conducting advanced exercises on Wolf 359b, which will test your capabilities in high-radiation, high-gravity scenarios." The alien observers listened to this casual announcement with mounting alarm. The news of human military capabilities spread through the galaxy faster than any information had ever traveled before. Within 6 months of the Proxima Centauri b training observation, every major civilization had received detailed reports about humanity's impossible endurance. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. On the military world of Kethagar, home to the Galactic Defense Academy, Commandant Vorthek called an emergency meeting of the Academy's senior staff. The ancient warrior had served in conflicts across 12 star systems and was considered one of the galaxy's foremost experts on military training and combat effectiveness. "Fellow officers," Vorthek announced to the assembled commanders, "we face a crisis that threatens the foundation of our military understanding. The human training reports have forced us to acknowledge that our elite graduates are barely capable of surviving in conditions that humans consider basic preparation. The Academy's training protocols had been developed over 800 years, refined through countless conflicts and tested by dozens of species. The most demanding courses pushed cadets to their absolute biological limits, creating soldiers capable of operating in environments that most civilians found challenging. "Sir," asked Training Master Yethul, "are we certain the human reports are accurate? Perhaps their measurement systems differ from ours, or their equipment provides protection that our sensors cannot detect." Commandant Vorthek activated the holographic display, showing footage from the Proxima Centauri B observation. "Our sensors confirmed every detail. The humans operated for 6 days in conditions that would kill our graduates in minutes. Their equipment provides less environmental protection than our standard-issue safety gear." The footage showed Lieutenant Baek Ye-jin leading her squad through terrain that glowed with heat radiation. The young human woman moved with casual confidence through an environment that required the Academy's most advanced hazmat protocols for even brief sensor probe deployments. "What concerns me most," continued the Commandant, "is that the humans describe these conditions as routine training. Intelligence suggests they have training programs that make the Proxima Centauri B exercise look like a recreational activity. Similar meetings were taking place throughout the galaxy. On the science world of Nexthara, xenobiologists struggled to understand how human physiology could function in such extreme conditions. Dr. Zenthari, the galaxy's leading expert on extremophile biology, had been studying human tissue samples for months without reaching any satisfactory conclusions. "Their cellular structure appears similar to other carbon-based life forms," she reported to the Galactic Science Council. "However, their protein configurations and metabolic efficiency suggest adaptation to environmental conditions that should be impossible for organic life to survive." The scientific community faced a crisis of understanding. Every measurement of human biology violated established principles of xenobiology. Their bones were denser than should be possible for a species that evolved under standard gravity. Their cardiovascular systems operated at efficiency levels that exceeded theoretical maximums. Their neural responses functioned normally under stress conditions that would cause immediate system failure in other species. On the industrial world of Quexthara, manufacturing corporations began receiving requests for environmental protection. Equipment rated for conditions previously considered beyond the scope of practical technology. The demand came from species attempting to replicate human training methods. "We've received orders for environmental suits capable of operating at surface temperatures of 400 degrees Celsius, reported Chief Engineer Nexthari to her corporate board. "The buyers want protection for extended operations in such conditions, not brief emergency survival." The orders represented the beginning of a galaxy-wide attempt to understand and match human capabilities. Military academies across dozens of worlds began developing new training programs based on human methods. The results were catastrophic. On the military training world of Bexthul, General Han Bo-Ra observed the first attempt by galactic forces to replicate human training standards. A select group of the galaxy's most elite warriors had volunteered to attempt training exercises in conditions similar to those used by human basic military programs. "We will begin with a modified version of the human Proxima Centauri B exercise," announced the Vorthak training coordinator. "Environmental conditions have been adjusted to provide survival margins appropriate for non-human physiology. The modified exercise took place on a world with surface temperatures of only 50 degrees Celsius, atmospheric pressure reduced to safe levels, and wind speeds limited to non-lethal velocities. Even with these massive safety adjustments, the exercise lasted only 6 hours before emergency medical teams were forced to evacuate the participants." "Casualty report," General Han requested from the medical staff. Dr. Lim Dong-hyuk, a human physician who had volunteered to assist with the medical support, reviewed the casualty list with growing concern. 17 cases of severe heat exhaustion, 12 respiratory system failures, 8 cases of equipment-induced trauma, and 3 psychological breaks due to environmental stress. All participants require immediate medical evacuation. The Galactic Elite Forces had failed to complete even a drastically modified version of routine human training. The conditions that had defeated the galaxy's finest warriors were approximately equivalent to a mildly warm summer day on Earth. "Doctor," General Han asked quietly, What would happen if these same soldiers attempted the actual human training exercise? Dr. Lim considered the question carefully. Based on the physiological responses we observe today, exposure to actual human training conditions would result in immediate fatalities, complete system failure within minutes. News of the training failures spread throughout the galactic military community, triggering a wave of panic and reassessment. Military leaders who had spent decades building their reputations on the capabilities of their forces suddenly realized that their most elite units were inadequate by the standards of human basic training. On the political world of Zentari Prime, emergency sessions of the Galactic Council continued around the clock. Representative Faith Ara of the Healing Caste presented a detailed analysis of the implications of human military superiority. Fellow counselors, we must acknowledge that human military capabilities represent a fundamental shift in the galactic balance of power, she announced. Any species capable of training in conditions that would annihilate our finest warriors cannot be considered a normal member of the galactic community. The political implications were staggering. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had maintained peace through a careful balance of military capabilities. No single species possessed sufficient advantage to dominate others. The discovery of humanity's capabilities threatened to upset that balance completely. What are our options? Asked High Counselor Kethron. We cannot ignore the human presence, and we cannot match their capabilities. Ambassador Osiri, humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, attended these emergency sessions with growing bewilderment. From her perspective, the galaxy's reaction to routine human activities seemed completely disproportionate. Honorable counselors, she addressed the assembly, I believe there may be some misunderstanding about human intentions. We have no desire to dominate or threaten other species. Our training programs are designed for defense and exploration, not conquest. Her words provided little comfort to the alien representatives. The humans seemed genuinely unaware of how threatening their capabilities appeared to species that struggled to survive in conditions humans considered recreational. Ambassador O, asked Commander Othmalik of the War Caste, can you explain why human military training exceeds the survival capabilities of our finest warriors? Osiri considered the question carefully. Our planet provided significant environmental challenges during our evolutionary development. We adapted to survive in conditions that apparently differ from those found on other worlds. Our training programs prepare soldiers for the various environments they might encounter during space exploration and colonization. The casual mention of colonization sent ripples of alarm through the assembly. If humans could survive and operate in environments that killed other species, then virtually every world in the galaxy could become a potential human colony. Ambassador, High Counselor Kethron asked carefully, does humanity have plans for territorial expansion beyond your home system? Eventually, yes, O replied honestly. We hope to establish colonies on suitable worlds as our technology and population develop. We would, of course, respect the territorial claims and sovereignty of other species. Her answer triggered the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Within days of her statement, defensive fleets began moving to protect worlds that had never required military protection. Species that had maintained peaceful relations for centuries suddenly found themselves preparing for potential conflict with a neighbor they had never fought. The economic disruption was immediate and severe. Industries based on environmental protection equipment found their products obsolete overnight. Worlds that had been considered uninhabitable and worthless suddenly became strategic assets. 6 months after the galactic crisis began, Fleet Admiral Ryu Myung-soo stood in the command center of Unity Station, humanity's first major orbital facility designed specifically for interspecies cooperation. Through the massive viewing ports, he could see ships from 43 different species docked at various levels of the station, each requiring different environmental supports and safety protocols. Admiral, reported Captain Park from the communications center, we're receiving the final confirmation from the Galactic Council. The Human Training Corps has been officially recognized as an independent galactic institution. The creation of the Human Training Corps represented the most significant political development in galactic history. After months of failed attempts, By various species to replicate human training methods, the galaxy had reached a remarkable conclusion. Instead of competing with human capabilities, they would learn from them. "How many species have signed up for the initial training programs?" Admiral Ryu asked. 37 species have committed to sending personnel for basic environmental adaptation training, Captain Park replied. The Vorthak Collective has requested advanced combat instruction, and the Zentari Republic wants specialized survival training for their exploration teams. The Human Training Corps had emerged from necessity rather than design. When it became clear that galactic military forces could not match human capabilities through conventional training, several species had approached Earth directly. They wanted human instructors to teach their soldiers how to survive in environments that had previously been considered impossible. Dr. An Hai-Wan, the galaxy's new leading expert in comparative species physiology, reviewed the medical data from the first month of interspecies training. Her research station on Unity Station had become the center for understanding how different species could safely adapt to more challenging environments. "The results are encouraging," she reported to the Training Corps command staff. "By gradually increasing environmental stress levels and providing appropriate medical support, we can help most species extend their operational capabilities significantly." The key breakthrough had come from understanding that what seemed impossible to galactic species was actually achievable through proper preparation and adaptation. Humans had evolved under extreme conditions, but other species could learn to survive in environments that exceeded their normal capabilities if they received appropriate training and support. The Plutonian respiratory system can be modified to handle oxygen concentrations up to 15% with proper conditioning, Dr. An continued. The Vorthak skeletal structure can adapt to gravity levels 30% above their normal range through progressive training. Most importantly, we've learned that psychological adaptation is often more important than physical modification. The first graduation ceremony for the Human Training Corps took place on Luna, Earth's moon. The ceremony was broadcast throughout the galaxy, watched by billions of beings who had followed the human story with fascination and concern. Lieutenant Commander Baek Ye-jin, now promoted to instructor status, addressed the first class of interspecies graduates. The ceremony took place in the same environment where human children played games, a setting that required full environmental protection for most of the alien graduates. "You have completed the first level of environmental adaptation training," she announced to the assembled graduates. "You can now operate safely in conditions that were previously impossible for your species. More importantly, you've learned that the limits you believed were absolute can be expanded through proper training and determination." The graduating class included soldiers, explorers, and scientists from 12 different species. They had spent 3 months learning to survive in progressively more challenging environments, starting with conditions barely more extreme than their homeworlds, and advancing to scenarios that had previously required emergency evacuation protocols. Among the graduates was Commander Vexithol, the same Plutonian officer who had led the first diplomatic contact with humanity. He had volunteered for the training program to better understand human capabilities and had emerged with a completely new perspective on the nature of biological limitation. "6 months ago, I believed the humans represented an impossible anomaly," he said during the graduation ceremony. "Today, I understand that they represent the potential that exists within all species when we push beyond the boundaries we have accepted as permanent." The success of the initial training programs led to rapid expansion of the Human Training Corps. President Jang In-seok announced the construction of specialized training facilities throughout the galaxy, each designed to help different species expand their environmental capabilities safely. "The Human Training Corps represents more than military instruction," President Jang declared to the Galactic Council. "It represents a new understanding of what is possible for intelligent life. We're not just teaching survival techniques, we're expanding the definition of habitable space for every species in the galaxy." The economic implications of this expansion were revolutionary. Worlds that had been considered uninhabitable wastelands suddenly became potential colonies for species that had completed advanced training programs. Mining operations could be established on planets with extreme conditions. Scientific research could be conducted in environments that had previously been accessible only through robotic probes. "The mineral wealth of high-temperature worlds alone will transform the galactic economy," reported economic analyst Keth Ronnie to the Trade Council. Species that complete thermal adaptation training will have access to resources that have been untouchable for thousands of years. The training programs were carefully structured to ensure safety while maximizing capability expansion. Beginning students started with environments only slightly more challenging than their homeworld conditions. Advanced students eventually learned to operate in scenarios that approached human baseline requirements. Sergeant Song Jae-ho, now Director of Advanced Environmental Training, supervised the construction of graduated training worlds throughout the galaxy. Each facility was designed to push specific species toward their maximum safe capabilities while providing comprehensive medical support and emergency evacuation protocols. "We've learned that every species has hidden potential," Song explained to a gathering of galactic military leaders. "The key is finding the right progression of challenges and providing appropriate support systems. What seems impossible becomes achievable when approached systematically." The most advanced training facility was established on Wolf 359b, the same world that had been mentioned casually during the original training observation. The facility served students who had completed multiple levels of environmental adaptation and were ready for conditions that approached human standard training requirements. "Welcome to Advanced Environmental Operations Training," announced Colonel Seo Taemin to a class of elite graduates from various species. "This facility represents the current limits of safe training for non-human physiology. The conditions here exceed the survival parameters that your species evolved to handle, but you've learned to push beyond those limitations." The Wolf 359b facility could accommodate only the most successful graduates of the training programs. The environmental conditions required constant medical monitoring and immediate evacuation capability for all non-human personnel. Despite these limitations, the facility maintained a waiting list of candidates from dozens of species. The psychological impact of completing Wolf 359b training cannot be overstated, reported Dr. Lim Dong-hyuk, the facility's chief medical officer. Students who graduate from this program return to their homeworlds with a completely transformed understanding of their own capabilities. The success of the Human Training Corps led to broader changes in galactic civilization. Military academies throughout the galaxy revised their curricula to include environmental adaptation training. Scientific expeditions began planning missions to worlds that had been considered impossible to explore. Colonial expansion programs were redesigned to take advantage of species-enhanced capabilities. "We are witnessing the dawn of a new era of galactic exploration," announced Dr. Zenthari, the galaxy's former expert on extremophile biology, who had become the director of extreme environment research. Worlds that were cataloged as uninhabitable are being reclassified as challenging but accessible. The habitable zone of the galaxy has expanded exponentially. The political implications were equally significant. Species that had been geographically isolated due to environmental limitations found themselves able to establish colonies in regions previously dominated by other civilizations. The careful balance of territorial control that had maintained galactic peace for millennia required complete restructuring. "The Galactic Territorial Accords need fundamental revision," announced High Counselor Kethron during a special session of the Galactic Council. "Environmental barriers that once provided natural boundaries between species no longer serve that function. We need new frameworks for managing territorial expansion and resource allocation."